The film Terminator 2, Judgment Day isn't just another science fiction classic. It is a film filled with secrets, unusual production techniques, and surprising moments that most fans never noticed. Moments like real twins on set, to salaries that could pay a lot of people's annual salaries, and groundbreaking CGI, this list uncovers 20 weird and interesting facts that show how much went into making one of the most iconic action movies of all time. Number 20. It was one of the first films marketed with the internet. Beginning with number 20, we have the fact that when Terminator 2, Judgment Day came out in the year 1991, the internet was not known to most people at the time because it wasn't used like it is today. But somehow, the movie blockbuster became one of the first films to have any online promotion. The studio partnered with a tech service company called Quantum Link, which was an early version of the company America Online. Through this medium, they shared press materials, early trailers, cast info, and film updates to a small group of online users that was still growing. This might not feel like much today because of how widely used the internet is, but back then, it was groundbreaking. And this marked the beginning of Hollywood's relationship with online marketing because it was the starting change in how movies reached people. Now that we've looked at the film's approach to marketing, let's get into other details that most fans never notice. Number 19. Some scenes were done with mirrors and twins, not CGI. At number 19 is a trick that many fans mistake for early computer effects. During the mental hospital scene where the T-1000 impersonates Sarah Connor, we are sure that most people assume that it was done with CGI. But what if we told you that it wasn't, and that what made the illusion work was actually Linda Hamilton's twin sister Leslie Hamilton, along with some of the use of mirrors and different camera angles? In the scene where Sarah is seen facing herself, with one standing behind the mirror and the other in front. There was no mirror because what you do not know is that it was not a reflection, but Leslie standing on the opposite side and copying Linda's every move perfectly. The result was a mirror effect that looked realistic without any digital effects at all. This same trick was used in another scene where the T-1000 mimics Sarah again, but instead of using visual effects, the filmmakers simply used both sisters, dressing them identically and choreographing the scene so well that it makes everyone think it was a computer-generated effect. It is said that James Cameron chose this method because he wanted to save on visual effects. After all, they were still expensive and limited at the time. If that sounds surprising, then wait for number 18. Number 18. There's a hidden alien Easter egg in the steel mill. At number 18 is a fun detail that only die-hard fans and viewers with sharp eyes might have noticed. During the final act of the film, where the intense battle takes place inside a steel mill, pause it and look closely at some of the machinery in the background. It may feel oddly familiar. That's because some of the pipework and set pieces resemble the creepy biomechanical style seen in the Alien franchise. This isn't just a coincidence because director James Cameron also directed Aliens in the year 1986. It makes sense that he would slip in a visual nod to that world. The machinery, lighting, and industrial texture of the steel mill scenes feature designs that were also used in the Alien universe, particularly in the styling of the space stations and ships. Number 17. Dyson's death scene was modeled after real trauma. At number 17, join us as we take a closer look at one of the most emotional moments in the film. That moment is the death of Miles Dyson, the scientist whose work would eventually lead to the creation of Skynet. His final scene wasn't so powerful because of the acting, but because of how real it feels. It was based on how trauma patients react when suffering extreme injuries. In the scene where Dyson is badly wounded and struggling to hold a detonator, we can all see that his breathing is fast, irregular, and painful as he tries to stay conscious. Instead of a final speech or slow fade out like other films before it, he gasps for air and can barely speak. This performance was inspired by actual footage of dying patients, particularly those who were suffering from chest trauma or respiratory failure. This is because James Cameron wanted it to feel raw and grounded. So, the actor Joe Morton, who played Dyson, studied actual medical cases to replicate what a dying person in that condition would look and sound like. This led to a result that was haunting and unforgettable. Number 16. It had the biggest budget of any movie at the time. Yes, when the film was released in the year 1991, it instantly became the most expensive movie that was ever made. The total production budget was reportedly over $100 million, which was unheard of at the time, especially for an action movie. To understand the significance of this, consider that the first Terminator film reportedly cost around $6 million, while the sequel's budget was nearly 17 times more. This was because most of the money was invested in the film's special effects, big action scenes, and futuristic sets. For example, the scene featuring the truck and motorcycle chase in the Los Angeles River is said to have cost more than the entire budget of many smaller films at the time. It was worth it because it kept the viewers on their toes with the effects, the action, and the overall quality. The film grossed over $500 million worldwide, setting new records and proving that investing heavily could lead to even greater rewards. Number 15. The film nearly got an X rating for its violence. Number 15 is that the film almost ended up with an X rating, which could have killed its box office success. Back in the early 1990s, the Motion Picture Association of America, MPAA, had stringent rules about what kind of violence could be shown in a movie rated R, and this film pushed those limits. The original cut of the film had some graphic scenes that involved the T-1000's brutal methods of killing, his blade arms, the way he stabs through heads or necks, and some of Sarah Connor's intense hallucinations about nuclear destruction were all considered to be too extreme. The MPAA flagged several of these moments and warned the studio that they risked an X rating if they didn't tone it down. An X rating in those days didn't just mean for adults only, it also meant that many theaters wouldn't show the film at all, and some newspapers wouldn't carry ads for it. James Cameron and his team revisited and edited some of the more intense scenes by shortening certain shots, removing excess blood, and refining the editing to soften the impact without compromising the tension. In the end, the film kept its R rating, but it was a close call. Number 14. Guns were made to look bigger to fit Arnold's size. At number 14, we discovered that not everything in the film was built to scale, especially the guns. Many of the weapons that were used in the movie were built to look larger than normal, because the filmmakers didn't want the guns to look small in Arnold Schwarzenegger's hands. Arnold is over 6 feet tall with the physique of a bodybuilder. When he held the guns in their standard sizes, it was reported that they sometimes looked too small, like toys. To address this, the filmmakers collaborated with weapon designers and prop makers to enlarge the size of certain guns, particularly those used by the Terminator. One good example of such guns is the M314 minigun, which the T-800 used to shoot at police vehicles in one scene. That gun is already large, but the team still adjusted its setup and mount to make it look even more imposing in Arnold's hands. The same goes for the shotgun and grenade launcher. They were fitted with extended barrels or oversized grips better to match the image of a deadly, unstoppable machine. These adjustments weren't just for looks, because they helped sell the idea that the T-800 was built to carry heavy firepower with ease, and it made the character even more believable as a machine that could outmatch any human soldier. Number 13. Arnold struggled with the famous shotgun. Flip number 13 brings us to focus on one of the most memorable moves in the film, the shotgun flip reload. It looked like something only a machine could pull off, since the T-800 was riding a motorcycle with one hand while spinning his shotgun in a circle to reload it. Behind that move was a lot of pain, frustration, and practice, because the gun that was used in that scene was a Winchester Model 1887 shotgun. It wasn't designed for use with one hand, not to mention flipping it while riding a Harley motorcycle. The weapon was heavy, the mechanics were stiff, and the large loop added to help with the flip only made it more awkward to control. Schwarzenegger had serious trouble mastering the flip. During practice, it is said that the shotgun's metal lever kept hitting his fingers, which caused bruises and swelling, so he had to wear a padded glove to protect his hand, but it took weeks of rehearsal to get the movement smooth enough to film. Sometimes it is said that they used lighter prop versions of the shotgun just to reduce the risk of injury or accidents on set. The flip is only a few seconds on screen, but it became one of the most iconic visuals in action movie history. It helped show that the Terminator was precise, practiced, and powerfully able to reload while in pursuit without breaking focus. Number 12. The T-1000's costume was so tight, Robert Patrick couldn't sit down. Number 12 brings us to look at the T-1000's. The character's sleek, cold look came from his wardrobe. But the weird part is that the outfit was so tight and fitting that Robert Patrick, who played the role of T-1000, literally couldn't sit down while wearing it. The filmmakers wanted the T-1000 to look smooth, sharp, and like a machine with nothing bulky or out of place, and so to make it possible, they had a police uniform redesigned to hug Patrick's body as closely as possible. The idea was to make him look more like liquid metal in human form with no loose fabric, no wrinkles, and no signs of comfort. The uniform, they say, was so tight that once he was zipped and strapped into it, he couldn't bend or sit. So, during breaks while shooting, instead of sitting in a chair like the rest of the cast, Patrick had to lean on a specially built backrest just to get some relief. Despite the discomfort, the outfit paid off by making the T-1000 look like a polished, unstoppable machine, and the tight uniform helped him move with precision, just as the character demanded. Number 11. Arnold didn't carry anything extremely heavy in Terminator 2. Let's shift our focus briefly in number 11 from something beyond Terminator 2 to something that often gets mixed up. Many people thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was lifting real heavy objects in Terminator 2, especially during those scenes where the Terminator hauls weapons and takes down enemies with ease. The truth is that while Terminator 2 had a lot of action and moments where it showed strength, Arnold didn't carry real weight in the most extreme scenes because the props were made light for safety and filming ease. Most objects that looked heavy were actually lightweight versions because the filmmakers used smart prop design to keep the shooting smooth and safe. Number 10. The nuclear nightmare scene was accurate. At number 10, we revisit one of the most disturbing scenes in the film, which is Sarah Connor's nuclear nightmare. It was a scene that experts to this day have later called one of the most realistic representations of a nuclear blast ever shown in a movie. In the dream sequence, Sarah sees herself at a playground, watching her younger self and other children play, when a blinding flash explodes in the distance. The light is followed by a wave of destruction. The shockwave turns everything to ash, blasts buildings apart, and sends a wall of fire ripping through the city. The flames reach Sarah, and her skin is burned off her body in horrifying detail as she screams, still gripping the fence. What makes this scene stand out is its technical accuracy, as years after the film's release, scientists, physicists, and defense experts reportedly stated that the sequence closely matches what would happen in a nuclear detonation, particularly in terms of the heat flash, shockwave, and delayed destruction pattern. James Cameron reportedly consulted nuclear specialists and conducted thorough research to ensure the visuals were grounded in reality. That's why the scene still holds up today. Number 9. The Cyberdyne building was actually a real bank. Number 9 takes us to one of the film's most important locations, the Cyberdyne Systems building, where the future of humanity was unknowingly being written. Like most films, there is an expectation for locations like that, but we are here to tell you that your expectations were wrong, because that wasn't a fancy lab or Hollywood set, but a real bank building. The exterior shots of Cyberdyne Systems were filmed at an office building in Fremont, California, which Security Pacific Bank later used. The production team reportedly chose it for its modern, industrial look, and it also resembled the kind of place that could easily be mistaken for a tech company working on advanced microprocessors. When the characters break into the building to destroy Skynet's research, everything from the hallways to the glass offices comes from the real location. The massive explosion at the end of the Cyberdyne assault was carefully staged with precise coordination between the film crew and local officials. They had to use special effects rigs, safety teams, and permits to ensure the fireballs and gunfire didn't cause actual damage, and to this day, That same building still stands. Number 8. Edward Furlong's voice changed. During filming, Furlong was 13 years old when he was cast as John Connor, but like many teenagers, his body was undergoing changes, and that included his voice, which dropped in the middle of production. Since it was filmed over several months, it didn't take long before Furlong's voice started sounding noticeably deeper in some scenes than in others, and this caused a worry or two because you can't have a significant character suddenly sound older or different halfway through the movie. To fix this, the filmmakers had Furlong re-record many of his lines in post-production, but they reportedly ran into another problem, which was the fact that some of the lines he re-recorded sounded too mature. So in certain places, they had to use audio editing tools to pitch his voice back up to match how he sounded earlier in the shoot. Unless you know what to listen for, most people never notice the difference, and that is proof of how well the sound team handled it. Number 7. The Terminator's awkward smile scene was deleted. At number 7, we examine a scene that didn't make it into this version of the movie, but it added a funny and strangely human twist to the T-800. There was a deleted scene where John Connor tries to teach the Terminator how to smile, thinking it might help him fit in better. But what came out of that moment was one of the most unnatural and robotic facial expressions ever to be filmed at the time. T-800 stands there with its straight face, then slowly stretches its mouth into what's supposed to be a friendly grin, but ends up looking like a stiff, forced grimace, as if the machine is glitching. Though the moment in the extended version gave fans a rare glimpse of the Terminator attempting to be more human, James Cameron ultimately chose to leave it out of the theatrical version. He felt it might shift the tone of the movie and make the Terminator look silly, especially since the story was starting to get darker at that point. The scene was later released in extended editions, and many fans still love it for the awkward humor it brings. Number 6. The motorcycle and truck chase nearly got scrapped. At number 6 is the motorcycle and truck chase, which is one of the most heart-pounding action sequences in the film. It's the scene where John Connor is riding through a storm drain on his dirt bike. The T-1000 is chasing after him in a giant semi-truck. Then the Terminator rides in on a Harley to save the day. It's pure adrenaline, and it's a wonderful moment that is always remembered, but it nearly didn't make it into the movie. The problem was financial, as the scene was massive in scope and required the use of real vehicles, skilled stunt drivers, and extensive coordination with the city of Los Angeles to shut down the drainage canals. Studio executives were concerned about the costs. There were honest discussions about cutting or downsizing the entire sequence to save money, but James Cameron disagreed. He insisted the chase was vital because it was the turning point where John sees the Terminator risk everything to protect him, and that moment lays the foundation for their bond. Cameron got his way, and the team pulled it off using practical effects, real stunts, and zero CGI. The semi-truck jump off the overpass was done for real, using ramps and precision driving. Number 5. The T-1000's liquid metal look required inventing new technology. At number 5, we look at how the film's most memorable villain, the T-1000, could change into anyone, turn into metal spikes, and melt through solid objects. In the year 1991, those visual effects weren't just hard, but were also impossible to make, until the team at Industrial Light and Magic built the tools to make it happen. The idea of a shape-shifting, liquid metal assassin wasn't something they could pull off with makeup or puppets, so the effects crew had to create new digital animation tools, custom software, and rendering systems, some of which were being developed as the film was already shooting. They used early 3D scans of actor Robert Patrick, which were combined with morphing algorithms to make the T-1000 transform in ways no one had ever seen. Each second of footage showing the T-1000 morphing took days to render, and the process was so advanced that it was like building an entire tech company within a movie studio. This was one of the very first films to use photorealistic CGI on a human character, and the effect still holds up over 3 decades later. Number 4. Robert Patrick trained to run without breathing or blinking. At number 4, join us as we focus on one of the most overlooked but intense forms of commitment any actor made to the film. Robert Patrick, who played the role of T-1000, took it upon himself to make his entire physical performance into something truly like a machine, and that includes training himself to run at high speed without breathing heavily, blinking too much, or even showing emotion. The T-1000 was meant to be an emotionless, unstoppable machine, which is different from Arnold Schwarzenegger's more humanized Terminator. Patrick made a decision most actors wouldn't even consider, which is training himself physically just to look inhuman. He practiced breathing control until he could run at full speed while keeping his mouth shut and his chest still. In the famous chase scene where he's sprinting after John Connor's dirt bike, Patrick is actually going flat out, yet his face stays completely neutral. He made sure not to blink often, not to mention flinch. He looks like something that was truly designed to kill, not survive. That calmness he showed while doing something so intense gave the T-1000 a terrifying edge. But it didn't stop there, because he also worked on his posture, stride, and how he held his arms while running. After all, everything about his role was about minimizing human behavior. Even how he turned his head or used his eyes was measured and deliberate. This level of detail made the character feel truly alien, not just because of visual effects, but because of the discipline and planning behind every single motion. And keep in mind, he did this while wearing tight leather gear, a full police uniform and heavy boots, all while performing multiple takes under hot lights and pressure. That kind of performance might go unnoticed at first glance, but it's exactly why the T-1000 still haunts audiences. Number 3. Linda Hamilton's twin was her on-screen double. At number 3 is one of the cleverest and most cost-effective filmmaking tricks used in the film, and it worked so well to the point where most viewers never even noticed it. That trick has to do with Linda Hamilton, who played the role of Sarah Connor, and her identical twin sister, Leslie Hamilton. Director James Cameron pulled off an on-screen double without needing special effects. This wasn't just a fun cameo because Leslie played an important role in key scenes, like where two versions of Sarah Connor appear on screen at the same time. A great example is the moment inside the Cyberdyne building, where the T-1000 takes the shape of Sarah to try and fool John Connor. Instead of relying on visual effects or body doubles from behind, they had Linda as the real Sarah and Leslie playing the T-1000 impersonation, face-to-face, in a single camera shot. Because they were naturally identical, it looked perfect with no computer work needed. Leslie also appears in the mirror scene at the gas station, where Sarah is seen performing surgery on the Terminator's head. In that case, the mirror isn't a real reflection, but Linda playing Sarah with her back to the camera, and Leslie is sitting across from her, mimicking her exact movements. It gave the illusion of a perfect mirror shot without using any visual effects. This use of her twin allowed the production to pull off shots that would have cost a fortune with CGI or taken weeks to edit. It also gave Cameron more flexibility to shoot scenes in real time and real space, with no body swapping, no face replacements, just a rare natural advantage most productions never get. With all that camera magic happening behind the scenes, what made Linda's performance even more interesting was what she put herself through physically. Number 2. Linda Hamilton trained like a soldier to transform into Sarah Connor. At number 2 is the incredible transformation that Linda Hamilton went through just to play Sarah Connor in the film. Now, unlike in the first film where Sarah was a terrified waitress thrown into chaos, this time around she was a hardened survivalist, and Hamilton was determined to make that transformation look and feel real. To achieve this, she trained relentlessly for over 3 months. Her routine including physical workouts, weapons training, and combat techniques. She teamed up with Uzi Gal, who was a former Israeli commando. Uzi Gal drilled her on how to shoot, reload, and move like a trained operative, which shows that everything from the way she handled a shotgun to the way she cleared a room was the result of actual tactical training, not just choreography. Her physical transformation was equally impressive, as she lost weight, built muscle, and sculpted a lean, muscular frame, with visible biceps and shoulders that became a defining visual of the character. This wasn't just about looks, but her new physique had to match the character's backstory of a woman who spent years preparing for a war that hadn't happened yet, and her body had to show the toll of paranoia, survival, and obsession. Hamilton also worked with mental health experts to understand what PTSD and long-term trauma might do to a person, so that she could show Sarah's inner struggles as convincingly as the physical ones. Her portrayal of Sarah as cold, intense, and almost like a machine herself was a result of fully immersing herself in that mindset, and it's why her performance still stands out decades later. And with that much effort going into her role, the following fact might raise your eyebrows, because at number 1, we're talking about how one actor in the film got paid for barely saying anything. Number 1, Arnold Schwarzenegger was paid over $21,000 per word. Drum rolls, because at number 1, we end with a fact that shows just how high the stakes and the paychecks were on Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is the face of the franchise, was paid a massive salary of $15 million for his role in the film, but what's wild is how little he spoke. Not sure you noticed, but across the entire movie, Schwarzenegger only says about 700 words, and that means, if you break it down, he earned roughly $21,429 per word. Yes, for every "hasta la vista" or "I'll be back," the studio paid more than what many people make in a whole year. To be clear, Arnold didn't just show up and talk because his role required intense physical work, endless hours in makeup, motorcycle stunts, weapon training, and being a significant part of the film's marketing power. However, the math is still staggering. Just imagine getting paid more than $20,000 to say, "No problemo." This fun fact has now become a legendary piece of Hollywood trivia, and it's often used as an example of how action stars, especially at their peak, can command enormous paychecks for roles that are more about presence than dialogue. And in Arnold's case, it worked because his limited lines made him seem more robotic, more intimidating, and more iconic. What can you say about these weird facts? Share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to share this video, like it, and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, click on the video displayed on your screen.